everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you part 1 of my June and July wrap up, and in this video I'm going to be discussing all of my reads for the past 2 months. So as you may have noticed, I've been posting wrap ups on my channel less frequently. The last time I posted a wrap up it was 3 months worth of content that I was discussing, and now this time it's 2 months. Normally the tradition on BookTube is to post a wrap up every single month, but in my case, because I'm so busy and I don't get a lot of time to post, because I've been following that standard, my feed is just filled with wrap up after wrap up after wrap up each month, because that's really the only thing I ever get to post. And I want to be able to diversify my feed a little bit, so I'm going to be cutting down on the amount of wrap ups that I'm posting. I'm probably going to do them every other month now. That does mean that these videos are going to be longer and I'm going to be discussing more content in them, but I think it's going to be helpful for me because I'm going to have to be more short and sweet and concise with the more content that I'm discussing, which is something I definitely need to work on. And for 2, I'll be able to post different types of content throughout the rest of the month, whether it be discussion videos or book tags or book reviews or vlogs. I will be able to be open to posting more content rather than feeling like I need to post a wrap up every single month. And I'm really happy about that change. I hope you guys are too. But that all being said, I do have 2 months worth of reads to discuss, and with it being summer, I've been reading more. I have 18 books to discuss with all of you. That is 9 reads per month, which I'm super happy about because I've been doing about half that for most of this year. So we got lots of really great books to discuss. You guys know I love to ramble, so I want to be able to take enough time to discuss every single one of these books in depth, so we're gonna dive right in and get started. Starting off with June, my first read of the month was Without You by Anthony Rapp, a member of Love, Loss, and the musical Rent. So the title of this book is relatively self-explanatory, so I'm not gonna go any further in that department, but to talk about some of my thoughts on this memoir. I've found that I have a newfound love for memoirs that I didn't know existed. The more that I've been reading them recently, the more that I've been feeling really inspired by them, and I think they're sort of, for me, like a form of self-help. I really don't like reading self-help books because I feel like they're kind of, I don't know, at least the way that I look at it, I feel like it's kind of condescending in a way, like I'm reading a self-help book because I feel flawed and because I have problems, and I just don't like the attitude that I have when I read those books. But reading memoirs, you're getting to experience what someone else has gone through, and in that way you're able to learn from them. And this book is really great because it doesn't feel like it's written like a normal memoir where it's trying to send a message and it's trying to be super inspirational. It's written almost like a novel. There's dialogue and it's Anthony Rapp just talking about this experience in his life, and it feels like it's written in a plot format, which was really unique. But I think for a book that talks about a musical that was so groundbreaking, you should expect that. So I was really happy that this book sort of defied expectations a little bit. Anthony Rapp is someone who is super influential in the Broadway community, and when I found out he had this book, I was super excited to get to read it. I absolutely loved it. It was so touching to me, and I think it was the perfect book that I needed to read to kick off my summer, because going into the summer I was really emotional and drained after going through my entire junior year. I really couldn't believe that it was over. It was sort of a little bit of getting used to like this new experience of like not being so busy with schoolwork and feeling overwhelmed. Like I actually had time to relax, and that felt really weird for me. So I needed a book that was really cathartic and could allow me to sort of get all of these emotions that I had sort of pent up throughout the entire year and release them. And this book definitely did that for me. It was really wonderful. I'm really glad I got the opportunity to read it, and I definitely encourage you to pick up Anthony Rapp's memoir. It is several years old, but I still do think it's worth a read. I really loved it, and I'm so glad that it touched my heart, and I'm excited to get to read more memoirs in the future. My next read of the month was one that I've been waiting to read forever, and I finally got my hands on it, and that is White Rabbit by Caleb Rarig. So I recommended this book in a recommendations video that I did with Alyssa from Pucks and Paperbacks. If you want to check out that video, it will be linked down below. I had so much fun getting to be a part of that collab with so many other amazing booktubers, and the whole entire video was centered around queer book recommendations. So naturally I had to recommend White Rabbit because it is one of my favorite reads maybe of this year. It was just so much fun and thrilling, and it was everything that I love about Caleb Rarig and his books. If you aren't unfamiliar with White Rabbit, it follows our main character Rufus, and the story takes place on the night of 4th of July. He's at a party with a whole bunch of his friends. His ex-boyfriend Sebastian comes and confronts him. This is really the last thing that he wants to deal with, considering the really horrible way that they broke up. He gets a call from his stepsister April. She doesn't seem like she's in good condition, so him and Sebastian drive out to the 4th of July party that she's at, and when they find her, she Becky is in a pool of her boyfriend's blood with a knife in her hand. He's dead, and now this whole entire story is figuring out who is responsible for killing April's boyfriend. And obviously it's a very thrilling novel. Rufus, Sebastian, and April go and confront all of the other people that were at this party, and they try to figure out who's responsible, who did something shady, and as you start to meet these characters, you start to learn a lot more about them than you would really think. Rufus is also going through a lot of other stuff in this book with his family and having to try to deal with mending his relationship with his ex-boyfriend, maybe trying to become closer together, trying to sort of fix the divide that's formed between them. There's lots of things going on, and I just loved it. I love Caleb Rarig's writing style because in his Twitter bio, he wrote, and I think this is just so brilliant, realistically foul-mouthed dialogue. I think that's so true to his books, but I think it's so wonderful because it really captures what it's like to be a young adult in today's society. His characters feel so honest and so genuine and real, which I love because there are a lot of YA authors that try to create their young adult protagonists to be like mini adults, which is a very good example. John Green. I love his books, but they're not exactly the most realistic representation of what it's like to be a teenager in today's 21st century society. But there's other authors like Caleb Rarig that master that perfectly. Not only that, but you have this whole extra layer of like thriller and mystery, and you're just constantly guessing, and you're just so roped in to the plot and to the story and the characters, and it's just so much fun. And it's also queer, and who doesn't love a good queer book? Because obviously it's our goal as readers to be able to try to read more diversely, to be able to be exposed to different types of characters, and Caleb does a wonderful job with that in his books. I absolutely love them. I'm going to be a reader of him forever. I'm so glad I found his books because they are some of my favorite things in the entire world. I'm very glad I finally got to pick this book up. It came out at the end of April, but I told myself I wasn't going to read it until summer vacation so that I could fully enjoy it. I definitely did, and I'm so excited I finally got to pick up this book. Plus, it was the perfect summer read because it was taking place over the 4th of July season. My next read of the month was a short one, and that is Odd Tales by Geoffrey Dean Dodie. I got to do an interview with Mr. Dodie, and if you would like to check that out, I will have it linked down below. I'm really glad I got the opportunity to sit down with him after reading Odd Tales. This is his first book, and it's basically a compilation of short stories that deal with the mystical. These are very fun, very well written, and just really short and sweet and to the point. I am really glad I got to read something like this. I really don't read short stories that often, so it was really cool to get to be able to be exposed to something a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and it definitely makes me very excited to be able to pick up more short stories in the future. And if you do want to find out more about Geoffrey Dean Dodie as an author and learn more about him, that interview is down below for you to check out, and we talk about Odd Tales and writing and a whole bunch of other good stuff in that interview. It's definitely worth a watch. Link will be down below. Moving on, my next read of June was Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Alberti. So I really can't go into details about this book because it is sort of roped into the Simon verse. So in order to talk about this, you kind of have to have a good understanding of Simon versus Homo sapiens agenda, and I definitely don't think you can read this until you read Simon because you're gonna get spoiled and you're really not gonna understand what's going on. But to say that I was excited about getting to see more in the Simon verse is a complete understatement. I loved getting to have a book from Leah's point of view because she was one of my favorite characters right off the bat when I read Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. I think she's such a really different character than any that I've ever read before because she has this really like badass personality, and she's super proud of who she is, just knows how to rock her own skin, and obviously she does have flaws and insecurities like all of us do, but I just admire her so much. I loved getting to see inside her head for the first time. I loved getting to see all the Simonverse characters back together. It was such a beautiful contemporary read. I love Becky's books just because they're so warm and sunshiny and happy, and this was just the perfect contemporary to read this summer. I absolutely love it. I think the cover's gorgeous, and this book just made me so emotional. I was like so shook reading it, just getting more and more into the plot. Oh my god, I was speechless. Honestly, like, this book is crazy. It defies all of my expectations. I love it. I love Becky. I'm so excited to see what she writes next, to see what she does outside of the Simonverse, but getting to see a conclusion to this world that I feel like was really beautiful and really fitting, I was super happy about. This is definitely another one of my favorite reads of the year, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to pick it up. The next book that I have here is one that I got to read and review for Teen Reads, and that is Invisible Ghost by Robyn Schneider. I was so excited to get to read this book for Teen Reads. If you want to check out my review, it will be linked down below. This is another book that I really did not know much about when I requested it, but upon reading it, I just absolutely fell in love. I loved the characters. I love that there's like a bit of a paranormal aspect to this book. And if you want to find out more about what the book is about, what my thoughts are. That Teen Reads review is down below for you to check out, which you should totally do. This next book I'm going to very briefly gloss over because it was not one that I necessarily wanted to read, but I had to read it anyway, and that is How to Read Literature Like a Professor by Thomas C. Foster. So I'm taking AP Lit next year, and by next year I mean next week, which is so crazy that the summer has already like flown by. So I had to read this book for summer reading, and it pretty much deals with different tropes within novels and being able to examine them and analyze them and know how to spot them in novels and being able to understand what they mean. And I think this was a great book to read, not only because I had to read it for class and it's going to help me in AP Lit, but just in general as a reader. I feel like I'll be able to read young adult novels, and instead of just reading for the plot, maybe I'll be able to analyze them a little bit more, I'll be able to understand them a little bit more, I'll be able to get more of an appreciation out of the story, being able to see certain elements that the authors take from other works and put into their own. I think it's going to make me a better reader, and so I'm glad that I was able to pick up a book like that and be able to get something out of it and be able to enrich myself as a reader. This next book I have here is one that I'm super excited to discuss with all of you, and that is Zed and Gone by Emily France. So back in March, I believe, Emily sent me an arc of her book, which came out in July, so it's in stores now. You should definitely go and pick it up. I reviewed this book for Teen Reads as well, and if you want to check out that review, link will be down below. I love Emily France and her books because she takes different areas within YA that are not really explored and tells those stories in a very unique way, which I love because her books are just so different than anything out there, but they tell such important stories that I feel like more people need to hear. Particularly Zed and Gone focuses on the way that we communicate with other people and the relationships that we share with other people, and the whole entire point of the story is take a moment to be able to share time with your family and talk with them and make them feel seen and heard and appreciated, and that message is so beautiful. I love the way that it's told in this story. I just had the best time reading it. I love Emily France. I'm so grateful that I've gotten to develop such a wonderful relationship with her because she's just the absolute sweetest. I love and adore her books. I'm so excited to get to read more from her in the future and be able to get to see her grow as an author. I'm very grateful that she sent me an arc for a book. I'm very grateful I was able to review it for Teen Reads. So if you want to see that review, go and check it out. The link will be down below. And if you want to check out my review of Emily's first book, Signs of You, I will link that video down below for you as well. So my last two reads of June absolutely traumatized me. The first of which was Before the Devil Breaks You by Bray. So this is the third book in the Diviner series. There's a fourth one that's coming out, who the hell knows when, but this third book screwed me up immensely. I was so emotional reading it. I'm so scared for all the characters. So many crazy things are happening and I am just overwhelmed. And I remember hearing Emma from Emma Books talk about this book and how she was just like so nervous after reading everything and how scared she was, and I was like, okay, what's gonna happen? I have absolutely no idea what to expect. And this book just completely and entirely broke me. I don't even like thinking about it now. Now that I'm thinking about it, it makes it hurt worse because I have no idea when the fourth book is coming and I just have to sit here and wait and wait and wait, and I don't like it. But the one thing that I do like is the world of the Diviners. It takes place in 1920s New York City, which is one of my favorite settings, deals with the mystical and occult, follows a whole bunch of young adults that have these special abilities that are considered divine, which is where you get the title The Diviners, and all of them have to team up together to handle situations that deal with the mystical and the occult. And the third and I believe the fourth book sort of deal with like a big overall situation that has been developing because of some of the minor incidents that get explained in the first two books. That's a little bit of a weird explanation, but like that's the best way that I can sort of wrap my head around the way that the story is being developed. I love this series. I don't know if I'm ever gonna read anything else from Bray because I love this series so much and I don't know if anything else she writes will ever live up to it, but it's so diverse and wonderful. Everybody is represented in some way, shape, or form. It's just so great. There's not another series that I can think of that just does such a good job with being so well researched within the 1920s setting and being able to make it feel very authentic and like you're actually there, and having really diverse characters and having just a completely different genre that sort of breaks all boundaries because it's historical but it's also like mystical and occult and fantastical. It's just everything you could ever want and more. I love it so much. I love the characters, I love the story, I love the plot. I'm just obsessed and I'm so excited for the fourth book. Need to know when it's coming out. I can't wait any longer. I need my hands on it so I can know what happens because I am scared as hell for these characters and what is going to happen to them. All I know is that it's not going to be good. And finally, my last read of June before we move on to July was The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This is an adult mystery thriller which I have never read before, and let me tell you, I absolutely loved it. This book was creepy and scary as hell, and I had to keep my light on after reading it because I was so freaked out by the end of it. This book kept me guessing with its twists and its turns. I have to admit, in the beginning, this book was a little bit It was relatively boring because you're just following our main character, Anna, who has agoraphobia, and so most of the first section of this book is her just wandering around her house, sort of getting to meet her and understand her lifestyle a little bit. You're sort of wondering, why does she have agoraphobia? What triggered this inability for her to leave her house and just sort of feel shut in? There's some new neighbors that moves in. She starts to spend time with them. That's a little bit different than anything that she's experienced. Then suddenly she sees something really weird out her window while she's spying on them, which is what she does with all of her neighbors in order to feel like she's more included within society, because obviously she's shut in her house. And then the big question is, like, did she see what she thought she saw? Because she was heavily intoxicated at the time. If she did see what she saw, then like what actually really happened there, and getting to understand like that is there more layers to what happened, and just unraveling this whole mystery of this character and everything that is going on inside her head. It's insane. I love it. This book is being adapted into a movie that is coming out, I believe, next October. It has such a good cast of people. There's Amy Adams, there's Julianne Moore, there's Gary Oldman. I'm just so here for this cast. I had already started filming, which I'm so excited about. I cannot wait to see this movie on the big screen. It's gonna be nuts. I'm so glad I got to read this. A huge thank you to Emma Books, who was like my spirit queen. I love her, and I will read anything she recommends. And to Brandon from Brandon the Book Addict, because both of them recommended this book. Very, very glad I picked it up because of them, and it definitely encourages me to want to read more adult mystery thrillers. Moving on to the month of July, my first read of the month was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. So I started this book in June, but I finished it off like the first 2 days of July. This is another book that I had to read for summer reading for my lit and film class. I'm so excited about getting to take that class. I love reading books. I love watching their adaptations. It's something that I do for fun on this channel, although I don't talk enough about book to movie adaptations, or something that I really, really love. So to get to take a class where I get to explore that, get to learn more about movies and the way that they're shot, and be able to just be so immersed in that world is something that I am crazy, crazy excited about. The first summer reading, we had to read Ready Player One. I watched the movie in August, so you'll hear me talk about that a little bit later on, but I did read the book in July. I really loved it, and I was a little bit nervous about reading this book because I know it's so steeped into 80s culture and references and video games, and that stuff is definitely not up my alley in any way, shape, or form, so I thought this book was going to be a huge miss for me because I wouldn't understand any of it at all. But I definitely have to say that if that is something that you're apprehensive about, don't worry about it at all, because I still loved this book regardless of the fact that there may have been some things that were referenced that I didn't entirely understand, and I was actually surprised because there were a lot more things that were referenced that I understood than I didn't, so it actually helped me feel a little bit more educated and a little bit less apprehensive about my knowledge of 80s culture. If you aren't familiar with the plot of Ready Player One, we follow our main character Wade Watts, and he lives in a near-futuristic society that takes place in the year 2045, in which this virtual reality game system called the Oasis, invented by James Halliday, has pretty much taken over the world, and people are able to use it as a way to escape from the collapse of society within the real world, and they're able to go to a virtual society where they're able to make friends, and they're able to shop, and they're able to play video games, and they're able to attend school, and pretty much anything that you can do in the real world you can do in the virtual world. But there's all of these added benefits of getting to like make your own avatar and getting to not really have to expose your flaws or insecurities or things to the world, and you can just kind of hide behind an identity. Obviously that's very problematic, but people can find that appealing if they're not very happy with who they are. Being able to conceal that and be able to have an identity that they're happy with potentially could be appealing. When James Halliday dies, he announces a competition in his will to find a hidden Easter egg within the world of the Oasis, and whoever finds that Easter egg will get full control of the Oasis. They'll inherit all of James Halliday's wealth, they'll inherit his avatar, and so this competition is huge. There's a company called the IOI that pretty much wants to take it over. They're a big government company. They want to turn the Oasis into something that it's not, and so Wade Watts and a lot of other Gunters, who are people that want to preserve the Oasis, are super unhappy with the IOI. Wade ends up becoming the first person to make stride within this quest to find Halliday's Easter egg 5 years after this competition is initially announced. So it follows the crazy journey that Wade has to go on now with being offered all of these potential benefits, and people wanting to find out who he is, and him having to sort of hide and having to worry about the IOI who are coming after him, and making friends with other people and be able to value the real world. Whole bunch of crazy stuff that goes on in this book. So as I mentioned before, I loved Ready Player One. one. I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to get to see what other book to movie adaptations I'll be reading this year in my lit and film class, but this was definitely a great one to start off with. I wanted to read Ready Player One a while ago when I found out the movie was coming out, but I never got the opportunity to, so I'm glad that I was finally gifted that chance, and I'm very glad I got to read this one. It was really good, and I'm actually tempted to maybe read more from Ernest Cline now. The next 3 books that I'm going to be talking about are all in a series, so it's just easier to sort of talk about them all together, and that is To All the Boys I Loved Before, P.S. I Still Love You, and Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. I read this trilogy and actually listened to it on audiobook in order to prepare for the release of To All the Boys I Loved Before on Netflix. I'm really excited to get to see that adaptation just because I think Netflix is such a great place for book to movie adaptations, because I feel like there's a lot more creative freedom and flexibility there than would be offered with a movie studio or a television network. So I'm really excited to get to see the full potential of this series and what the creators have done to adapt it and bring it to the screen. This is a series that I know a lot of people really love, so I was excited to get the opportunity to read it and experience it for the first time. I do have to say that I don't think I loved it as much as a lot of other people did, but it was definitely really cute and fun and a very lovable contemporary series, and I can definitely see why other people love it. I just don't particularly think that it was one of my favorite contemporaries or that it was very stand out to me. If you're unfamiliar with this series, we follow our main character Lara Jean, and she has a very close-knit relationship with her 2 sisters. And so when her older sister Margot is going off to college, she's leaving behind her family for the first time, and also her boyfriend Josh, who Lara subsequently has a huge crush on. So Lara Jean liked Josh before Margot did, but once they got together, she had to conceal her feelings, and in order to do that, she wrote Josh a love letter, and she's done this with every person that she's ever had a crush on, because it's pretty much her way of not having to go after the person, her being able to sort of have this cathartic emotional release. All these letters are incredibly private, incredibly personal, incredibly embarrassing, and upon starting high school and coming back from summer vacation, all these letters end up getting mailed out, and now all of Lara Jean's crushes know all of her thoughts about them. So obviously Lara Jean is mortified when she finds out that Josh gets a hold of this letter, as well as Peter Kavinsky, who's the really popular, obnoxious, stuck-up high school stereotype. And so in order for Lara Jean to sort of avoid Josh at all costs, her and Peter Kavinsky team up and basically have a fake relationship in order to thwart Josh off and for Peter Kavinsky to thwart off his ex-girlfriend. And this sort of brings the 2 of them closer together, allows Lara Jean to experience potentially real love for the first time, and this fake relationship starts to potentially become a lot more than the 2 of them planned for it to be. I love this book because it sends the message of being able to learn to love for the first time and getting your heart broken for the first time and being able to get back up. And it's really cute and sweet and really well written and just super fun. I love the representation of Korean culture in this book and getting to see how that plays into Lara Jean's family and the customs and things that they develop. I just think that's something you really don't get to see a lot in YA novels, and I loved getting to read about that and learn more about that culture. I loved getting to see Lara Jean really grow and mature throughout this series. I feel like she has a very strong and poignant development compared to a lot of other YA characters, because by the time you get to Always and Forever Lara Jean, which is the 3rd and final book in the series, Lara Jean has very significantly matured. You see her making her own decisions, feeling confident in herself, and not feeling really nervous and insecure about who she is, and being able to be proud and feel comfortable in her own skin and not feel nervous. And I love getting to see that growth, and it was just really well written and really well developed. My next read of the month was another one that I reviewed for Teen Reads, and that is 4-Letter Word by Krista Desir. So this is a book that I really didn't like, in my opinion. It was okay. I've actually unhauled it. It's in a huge box downstairs with a whole bunch of other books that I'm getting rid of, so I don't have it with me right now. My Teen Reads review is down below if you would like to check out my thoughts and opinions on this book. I really don't want to discuss it here because it's just easier to be able to send you that review where you can find out more about my thoughts on the book. My next read of the month was Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich. I just butchered that immensely. I apologize. In this book, our author sets out and attempts to try to live the lifestyle of a low-wage earner in America. And in the very beginning of this book, you get to see the ground rules that the author establishes for herself and the different jobs that she takes on and what her experiences are and what her thoughts are and the different people that she talks to that live these lifestyles daily and what it is that she learns from trying to live the lifestyle of a low-wage earner, because this whole experiment is pretty much to see if the author can be able to get by with like rent and food and necessities and everything that you need to survive day to day with the income from a low-wage job. Obviously, she goes into it knowing that that's probably not going to be possible, but she wants to be able to get more than just like, is this possible? It's about learning what the experience is like, learning what it does to you physically and mentally and emotionally, getting to meet other people and get inside their head. So it's more than just this one experiment. So one of the things that we are asked to analyze in this book for summer reading for my college writing class is the credibility of the author. And I think that's such a huge thing in this book that's really worth discussion, because you could go back and forth on this. I mean, for the most part, you can say that the author is definitely not 100% credible in any way, shape, or form, because she can quit this experiment anytime she wants and go back to her cushy middle class, slightly upper class lifestyle. But at the same time, she is taking on this experiment that a lot of people won't, and she is having real, authentic experiences that everyone else is having to experience in these low-wage jobs. And so in a way, she is more credible than a lot of other people to be able to talk about this, because she is going in and attempting to do something that other people won't do, and is telling this story and is trying to sympathize with these low-wage earners. But she did spend a lot of time complaining, and that does not make her very credible, because she did attempt to go into this experiment in the first place, and her complaints do get very, very annoying in this book. But I do think it was worth a read. I do think it was interesting, and I do think it was definitely very eye-opening. There was a lot of things that I learned, and it definitely made me more aware of society and the different people that work in these jobs and the lifestyles that they live, and learning as a consumer to be able to appreciate them a little bit more, be able to treat them nicely, and be able to show them a little bit of respect, because if you do that, maybe it'll just make their job a little bit easier. And if you as a consumer can do that, it makes a big impact in somebody's life, and I'm glad that I was able to take that away from this book. My next read of the month was another one that I reviewed for Teen Reads that I am unhauling, because I want to be able to get rid of as many books as possible to be able to make shelf space, because my shelves are getting hella full, and that is The Broken World by Lindsey. This is the second and final book within this duology. I read the first book, I believe, maybe in 2016, because of Booksplosion's involvement in the book trailer for this series, which I thought was really cool. And I love the premise of like fictional world meets the real world, and getting to see those two realities collide. I always love that trope. I think it's so much fun to read. So I was really excited about getting to pick up this series. I never thought I was going to finish it though, so I'm really glad I got the opportunity from Teen Reads to be able to finish off this duology. It was really fun and really sweet. I love the characters. I love the plot. There's so much to this world that is just so wonderful and so much fun, and you love a really good YA series that maybe it's not the best written series in the world, maybe it's flawed in some areas, but you have fun and you're enjoying reading it, and that's what's most important. That's definitely what this series is for me, so I'm really glad that I got to finish it off. This is definitely very fast paced, which I wasn't expecting at all. Stakes are definitely risen. My next read of the month was another summer reading book for my AP Lit class, which was The Catcher in the Rye by JD Salinger. So this is a book that I've been anticipating, that I've had to read for high school for a while now. I picked it up, I read it, and by the end of it I was very, 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 very depressed. This book really doesn't have much of a plot if you don't know about it. Pretty much is your very stereotypical coming of age YA novel. We follow our main character Holden Caulfield. He gets kicked out of high school for like the 4th or 5th time, decides to go on an escapade in New York City for 2 to 3 days, meets a whole bunch of people, and because he is very socially isolated, doesn't really know how to form relationships, be able to talk, communicate with other people, he pushes everyone to the side. He ends up really depressed and sad, and this is him basically going through this entire experience of being able to come into adulthood, be able to come into his skin, being able to learn to interact with other people, being able to accept love, being able to just understand this world that he is being exposed to. So this book, I can see how John Green took inspiration from it, because this book feels so much like everything that I see in a John Green novel, and I can see that why this is definitely one of his favorites, but I just like could not get into it, not only because of like the obsessive amount of highlighting and annotating I had to do, but just because this book was very, very depressing. The more that I read it, the more I started to get into it, but it was definitely a lot. It's very, very sad, and I wouldn't recommend reading this book for fun by any means, because it's not fun at all. It's sad. That's like the key word, is sad and depressing. You really don't want to read any books that are sad and depressing, because they make you feel sad and depressed, and that's definitely how I felt by the time I finished this book. I think that says all that needs to be said about this. And finally, my last read of July was Dear Evan Hansen, the novel by Val Emmons. Emmett with Stephen Levinson, Ben Pasek, and Justin Paul. This is one of my most anticipated reads of the year besides Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare, and I was able to get an arc of it because of my wonderful friend Emily from Emma's Reading. If you want to check out her channel, link down below. She got me an extra copy during the week of BEA. I have this, I read it, I cried, I sobbed, I was so emotional. I constantly had to stop like every few chapters because I was reading something and then I like couldn't believe what I was reading, and I was just so emotionally moved because there was all these new things that were being brought in that I like wasn't anticipating at all, and because I love this world and the story so much, it was just a lot for me to handle, but I loved it. I love this new world and getting to meet the characters and get to see them in a new light and being able to go more in depth with them. I have the world in the musical and I have this world now, and I love both of them, and I love getting to have all of these extra puzzle pieces and things filled in. Just, it's the greatest thing in the entire world. I'm gonna be rereading this book when it comes out for sure because I love it so much. I want to read it like 12 times over. I'm so glad I have an arc in this book. This is now probably one of the most cherished things that I own. I can't believe I have this in my hands right now. This is just so amazing. They announced the Dear Evan Hansen tour, and the entire crew is coming to Chicago because of Anderson's My Favorite Indie Books tour. They're doing a raffle to be able to get to meet all of these lovely people. I really hope I win because I would love to get to meet Benj and Justin and Stephen Levinson and Val Emmett, these people who've just changed my life and have just written a story that is so emotional and so impactful to me. I love this book so much. I'm so happy I have it in my hands. I'm so happy I got to read it. I definitely want to do a full-length review of this one because I have so many thoughts and opinions that I want to discuss. So that review will hopefully be coming sometime in the near future. But this book does come out in October. When it does, y'all should go and pick it up because I really hope you all are gonna love it. I was so excited when I found out that Dear Evan Hansen was being made into a YA novel because it was taking a Broadway musical and books, two of my favorite things in the entire world, and putting them together, and I couldn't be happier. Whew, that is it for my June and July wrap up. I read so many good books this summer, and I'm very glad I got the opportunity to share them all with you. If you want to talk about one of your favorite reads this summer in the comment section, let me know. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to check me out on social media, the description is a great place for you to check out. All of the links that I mentioned in this video will be down below there for you to go and check out. All of my social media is down there below for you to check out. My email is down there for you to check out. So many good things in the description. Go and check it out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!
Broadway, here I come.